Ruritan Citizen of the Year, Edwin Partin, 2008.
I am so appreciative and so honored to have people that I respect so much that are here tonight. And I'm gonna not be able to mention everybody. I'm gonna mention just a couple or three. Rad and his wife, who have been so wonderful to us. John William, who I've known all my life, and Sandra. Mr. and Ms. Gray, who we've come to know. Nobody in this community that I think any more of than Nestor Stewart. My gosh, Nestor called this morning and said, reckon I could still come out there. I said, Nestor, I couldn't be any more honored. And for Nestor to come, that's just one of the high points of my whole life. I can't tell you.
The My Usage app is a way to conveniently pay online, anytime, day or night. You can also come by any Caney Fork Electric office and sign up for the prepay option available using the My Usage app. Know exactly how much electricity is used each day and the cost. Best of all, no monthly bill. You can set up email or text alerts, keep track of your usage, and pay your bill, all with the My Usage app from Caney Fork. Caney Fork Electric, keeping you informed.
Security Federal Savings Bank is always pleased to provide virtually every banking service you could ever need. But more than that, we are proud to offer a relationship with you, your family, or your company. We've been here supplying just what you need and building a trust, a relationship. And that's something hard to find these days. Our bankers are here for you, here to help. If you are interested in a relationship, come to the friendliest bank in town, Security Federal Savings Bank, member FDIC.
Grace Family Pharmacy announces new medication packaging service. It provides a simpler, safer medication experience through convenient, personalized packaging using the latest in pharmacy robotics. We're located at 357 West Main Street. Our phone number is 931-473-6418.
McMinnville, you're a great place to be. McMinnville, Tennessee.
And some just wonderful dear friends. And for the people who have driven here that aren't familiar with this particular award, if you knew the caliber of people who have won this award over the years, then you would have an idea of why I'm so honored to win this, because people that I've just admire so greatly have won this award, and I'm so appreciative of it. As far as thanking people, I want to thank Gary for those kind words. Thank the Ruritan for being so nice and selecting me. I thank Brother Cowan for the invocation. I thank God every day that He gave me the foresight to marry my best friend. And that's been a blessing for 38. I thank Him every day. Some days I thank Him more profusely than others. I don't thank Him the same amount every day, but I thank Him at least a little every day. And I think that has rubbed off, because I believe our two boys have found soulmates, and I've got the sweetest daughter-in-laws anybody could have, Tara and Sarah, and their names. And I want to thank the people again that prepared the meal, because as so often, the people that are doing the hard work in the background, we're out here dressed up and doing the talking, and they're back there washing up and doing that. So for so many awards, the people in the background are the ones doing all the hard work. When we first moved to Morrison, I knew that I had a little bit of Morrison background, but to be honest, I didn't know that much about it. But my grandmother was still living. She was a King and married a Phillips. So I took my granny Phillips out there, and I said, I'm going to show you our new house, or show you our house. And she walked in and she looked around, and bless her, it was late in her life. And she said, oh, I've been in this house. She said, I was in this house when I was a girl. Said, Edgar's cousin lived in this house. Well, sure enough, we got to looking back, and Mr. and Ms. Rogers, the people that had built that house, were kin to my granddaddy. And she started telling me all the connection to Morrison, and between the Phillipses and Kings and Rogerses and Allisons and all these different generations of my mother's family, between the Morrison Cemetery and the Bryan Cemetery and Mount Carmel and Mount Zion and the Cunningham Cemetery, there's about 6 generations of my mother's family going all the way back. So now, in the afternoon, when I'm driving home, I really am driving home. So everybody in here has learned some things the hard way, and I have too. We've all learned that life is pretty uncertain. The day that Mike and John came up to the store to tell me about this award, it was on Friday afternoon. I remember this was the day I died. They drove up and they said, you know, we had to detour around a bad wreck on the way over here. And by the next morning, we'd all found out that it was 3 of the finest people that this community has ever known, who are far more deserving to be up here than I'm up here, but they had no idea the morning of that day that was the last time they were going to leave their house. So life's uncertain, and when you have the opportunity to do something, you better take advantage of it. So tonight, I'm going to take advantage of something. I want to dedicate this award to a couple of people who exemplify some things that have inspired me, and one of them, the first one, some of you guys know, some of y'all know, and it's my great aunt, Mrs. Bert Harrison, my Aunt Lita. Anybody remember Aunt Lita? If there was anybody that you could pick out that would be in the background, it would be her. They lived over behind Carrier, where Carrier is now. Least little thing you ever saw. She was a king. My grandmother was a king. And she took care of my great-granddaddy, Walter King. King Street, where we live, was named after the Kings, but not our end of the Kings. It was a different branch. They were cousins. But poor Aunt Lita and Uncle Bert was poor as church mice. And she suffered a broken back in the 50s, and she wasn't this big. And by the time that I really got to where I could appreciate her, she was all stooped over. And she would have to hold her chin up to have a conversation with you. And she and Uncle Bert raised every one of their grandchildren and clothed them and fed them and sent them to school, frankly, because I'm sure they knew if they were going to go to school, that's the way they was going to have to do it. And one of them ended up staying with her, and that was my cousin Terry. And Terry was one of the younger ones. And Terry was, God works in mysterious ways, because you would think that Terry might have been a burden to my Aunt Lita, but they formed a good team. What Terry couldn't figure out how to do, she could. And what she wasn't capable of doing, he was able to do. So they were a dynamic duo. And then the greatest thing, if you think there's not a God, God put the greatest individual I know, Billy Joe Youngblood, who I love dearly. Billy Joe was their neighbor, so he could oversee the whole operation. So as long as Billy Joe was there, everything was going to go pretty smooth. Now, this little bitty scrawny woman, and she had them black king eyes. They were either king eyes, they were beady. I've got 2 brothers here. It's got the same thing. It's on that side of the family. They're beady eyes. But what she had, for all of the afflictions she had some talent. She played the piano over at First Methodist Church for years, and what she lacked in skill, she made up for in enthusiasm. But what she had more than anybody, and I've read books on a positive mental attitude. Nobody had a positive mental attitude more than she did. And you could tell it because one day, out of the clear blue, Mr. Aaron Durham in town had a radio station, and he had a call-in show. Now, I don't know what possessed her to call in, and he mentioned to her, she mentioned she could play the piano. Well, nothing would do Aaron until she started playing. And traditionally, if you asked her to play, she would play the Trail of the Lonesome Pine. That was Uncle Bert, one of his favorites, the Trail of the Lonesome Pine. She pounded out, and anybody that ever been to Aunt Lita's house and been in there can imagine, y'all have, you know the situation that she was playing it. Well, that people just went nuts over it. I mean, she would just go on and on and on, and she was sharp as a tack. And if she didn't call in, people would be worried about her. They'd call in requesting it. And finally, one day, WSM Television sent a TV crew to Morrison, Tennessee, went to her house, and did a TV spot on My Aunt Lita. And they have been the last positive television spot made in Warren County that I can remember. But that little lady, through all of her afflictions, with her positive attitude, was able to tell the world how much she loved Morrison and Warren County. So an attitude can carry you a long way. And I try to tell people every day it's a beautiful day, whether it is or not. If you tell people it is, maybe they'll believe it is. But she's been an inspiration to me. Now, the other person that's been an inspiration to me is here tonight. The other night at church, they were talking about taking prayer requests, and somebody named this person and somebody named that person, and I didn't know either one of them. And they said, well, we just need to mention all the caregivers. And I have a special place in my heart for caregivers. When my kids were growing up, we would go to the Braves game, and Dale Murphy was wonderful. And I love the Titans, and Steve McNair just retired. But those people aren't the heroes of the world. Those people are incredibly talented, and they get paid a lot of money to entertain people. The heroes of the world are the people who do what they don't have to do for somebody else, but they do it out of love. The Bible says that you should have faith and hope and love, but the greatest is love. That's about as big as it gets right there. Now, I know there's a lot of people in this room that have done that. I know my good friend Jim Chaffin took care of Edna, and right up to the end. My brother and sister-in-law are taking care of Mr. and Ms. Hendrickson, and that's a full-time job right there. My dad took care of my mom, but she passed away. My sister took care of my dad. But here's the story. 38 years ago, just about this time, the prettiest girl in Warren County took the least lacklustrous human being home to meet her parents. And not just to meet them, but to tell them they were going to get married. And I got to thinking about this. I believe that was the first time I'd ever met them, because they wouldn't have let me come back. Well, okay, I feel better about that. It would be the equivalent of your dog dragging a turtle up on the porch that had been run over. That's as bad as it was. And it actually gets a little worse because, and this is me and Linda I'm talking about, I hate to say it, but my wonderful late father was retired military. He'd been in the service for 20-odd years, and here she brings me in, and it was just like daylight and dark. But he never said anything, thanks to this lady right here, my hero, Maggie McPherson. Now, for all those years, starting that night, she's taken care of me just like I was her own child. But I'm pretty low maintenance. Now, honestly, I've tried to not give her a lot of problems. But as a military wife, Maggie was accustomed to taking care of people. She took care of the kids for months at a time while Jim was stationed. He's overseas and in Vietnam. When Linda and I first started dating, Linda's grandmother, Miss Medley, Barry's grandmother and Maggie's mother, she'd had a stroke. I never got to meet her when she was at herself. But Maggie was taking care of her. And then when Cody, my Cody's namesake, his great-grandpa Cody, when he was sick, Maggie took care of him. But the job of her life came up, the calling of her life came up in 1992. And of all places, at church, my father-in-law, the late Jim McPherson, got a little lightheaded at a Christmas play and went outside to get a breath of air and lost consciousness and fell and suffered a spinal cord injury. And for a few days, he was just touch and go as to whether he's going to live. I mean, initially the doctors were concerned why he passed out, and then they realized that the injuries were so severe that it didn't make any difference why he passed out. They just had to keep him alive from the injuries. So for weeks, he was down at Baptist in rehab, and they were trying to get him rehab to see how much bodily function he'd be able to come up with. Would he be able to hold a spoon? I can remember they took a spoon and a fork and molded them around, tried to see if he could hold them. and he couldn't. So after they determined that the simplest skills weren't going to be coming back to him, they went to my mother-in-law and they said, well, where do you want us to make arrangements to take Mr. McPherson? He's a veteran. We could go to the VA. We can work that out there. And Maggie said, well, Jim and I have talked about this, and I think we're going home. And they said, well, now, Ms. McPherson, that's noble, and that's a good plan, but it's going to take round-the-clock people for you to be able to do this. You'd have to have somebody there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And she said, well, we're going to try it anyway. We'll just see how this works out. And for the next 14 years, and if you hadn't had the caregiver he did, he wouldn't have lived 14 years. So tonight, I have the opportunity to publicly tell you that this lady is my hero, and I'm proud to recognize her, and by extension, all of the caregivers of the world. Thank you for this honor, and good night.